Welcome everyone, and good evening. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Bob Calnan, and I am very, very proud to represent the Hall of Fame as its current president. Very proud. The Bristol Sports Hall of Fame is a special organization started in 1997 by our co-founders John Fortunato and Bob Montgomery to help preserve and document Bristol's very rich sports history. Since then, the Hall of Fame has evolved into a multi-dimensional organization. To date, 218 individuals and 3 organizations have been inducted into the Bristol Sports Hall of Fame. But the Hall of Fame is much more than just our induction. Just this past March, 105 student athletes from all 3 high schools were recognized for their athletic accomplishments, but also for their academic achievements in the classroom. Also, at the same event, we were very, very proud to award 6 $2,000 scholarships for a total of $12,000 to 2 students each from Bristol Eastern, Bristol Central, and St. Paul. So that was a big accomplishment. And actually, the Scholar Athlete Dinner is named after one of our former presidents and executive director, Jack Hines, who was here tonight. Jack was very instrumental in getting that Scholar Athlete started. The Hall of Fame also sponsors 3 leadership programs each year to help prepare our captains and co-captains of the respective teams from all 3 schools to be better leaders, not only with their teams, but also later on in life. And this year, for the first time, we awarded just over $10,000 in grants to local nonprofit organizations. So we were very proud of that, helping out the different organizations in town. You know, as you can see, we are very involved in the community, but it takes a dedicated board of directors to get this done. And we do have a very dedicated board of directors. So at this time, I really would like all present directors and past directors to stand up and be recognized, please. Another one, a very good aspect of our organization is we have a very good website. I encourage you to visit our website, bshof.org. Find out more about the Hall of Fame, including past inductee speeches. You could skip Dave Raponi's, it's not worth it. But we also have a very extensive video library, and we have a very nice scrapbook section. Under the scrapbook section, we have a history of things like the Forceful Boys Club, Bristol Boys Club, Bristol Girls Club, Bristol Little League and softball, and many other organizations, even going way back. So I encourage you to check out the scrapbook section. And the one person that was very responsible for that is here tonight is Hank Lodge. So I have to thank Hank for all his work he did with the scrapbook section. Now, this program would not have been possible without the hard work of 2 individuals. And if you only knew what they had to go through to get this to come to fruition, you'd be amazed. So I'd like to thank Hal Kilby and Dave Mills for all their hard work and efforts to make this night possible. Let's give them a round of applause. Very well deserved. Finally, before I turn it over to our man in the back, Tom Mazzarella, I ask that you silence all your cell phones and other electronic devices before we begin. Thank you and enjoy the evening.
Tonight, we celebrate success, perseverance, and legacy. Welcome to an unforgettable evening with Bristol's finest athletes, leaders, and icons. From the courts of Bristol to the biggest stage in basketball, Donovan Clingan has proven that hard work and determination can take you to the top. Success isn't just about winning on the court. It's about leading in life. Jay Calnan built his legacy as a visionary entrepreneur by turning ambition into action. Malcolm Huckaby is a competitor on the court, a mentor off the court. He will take the stage tonight as our guide through this extraordinary evening. Success, service, legacy. Their journeys began in Bristol. Their success has reached far beyond it. Tonight, they return to share their stories. Please welcome to the stage, Malcolm Huckaby, Donovan Clingan, and Jay Calnan.
Good evening, everybody. What a great night, what a great event. I know there's been a lot of thank yous, but I can't tell you how excited I am to always continue to give back to Bristol. Seeking success and leaving a legacy. I'm more excited because I see a lot of young faces in here. And I think back to my time growing up in Bristol. I had so many great mentors. Started with my parents, my father, Albert Huckaby, my mom, Eloise Huckaby, but I had so many great teachers and coaches, and it wasn't just one person. I know that saying is used a lot, it takes a village, but it really was that for me and my experience growing up. If you'd have told me when I was growing up in Bristol, starting off at Mary A. Calnan School, going to Green Hills and Memorial Boulevard and Bristol Central, that I would play all over the world, play professionally, play in NBA, play in Italy, play in France, and then now working at ESPN, working for Bank of America, working for Merrill Lynch, doing a lot of things that I thought not possible. I would have said, no way as a kid growing up. But those folks, and some of them here in this room, Mr. Mills, encouraged me. And that's what this event is about tonight. When Mr. Mills asked me to come and host this, I said, without a doubt, my mom had been going through some illnesses, and I was a little against it, but then I said, you know what, I thought back to myself growing up and the importance of having people in my life that encouraged me, but also people like Donovan coming back. Steve Peichel was my hero growing up, so I remember he came back and he played with me in the Boys and Girls Club. And I said, okay, I want to play in the Big East. So I had so many people that were encouraged in my life, and again, it was easy for me to get back. I want to give you a little housekeeping though tonight for this. I'm going to introduce two folks, and they're going to tell their story. Obviously, everybody knows Donovan's path, but the person that I'm about ready to introduce, Jay Calnan, I got a chance to know him while I was living up in Boston. And for some folks here that don't know, he's one of the most successful businessmen, not just in the area of Boston, but in New England, maybe across the country. And he's right here from Bristol, went to Bristol Eastern. And his story is amazing. And he's going to tell you a little bit about his story. But I think the most important thing about his story is what he's doing giving back. There's an organization that he started and co-founded called Team Impact. Some of you may have heard it. Some of you may have seen it, where kids that have some disadvantages, they're a little challenged with some of their abilities, they're signed on to all these colleges. And he's going to tell you a little bit about how that started. And again, so many people don't know that started right here from a young man in Bristol. But before we start, and Jay comes up, I'm going to read his bio, but we got a special visitor here today that came And I want your sister to come up. I want you to stand up. Your sister flew in out of town. There was a little surprise, and we hadn't seen her for a while. So before we get started, go give her a hug. Go give her a hug. See, I knew we had a little surprise for you. So we talked about, and Jay's going to talk a little bit about his business, but I think the most important thing for Jay is being the co-founder of Team Impact. It's a national nonprofit that matches children facing chronic or life-threatening illnesses with college athletic teams. What began in 2 cubicles, and Jay's going to talk to you a little bit about how this thing started off, expanded into a national brand. When I travel around for ESPN, whether it's the Dukes of the world, the Florida States, you name it, all these teams are connected to Team Impact, and they're impacting families in a way that really is just amazing. So with that, I want to introduce Jay Calnan.
Thank you, everyone. John, unbelievable. I was talking to my sister this morning, and she said, I'm traveling. I said, where are you? She was being a little discreet. She's never like that. She said, well, I'm up north. And I thought for a second, Bristol? And she said, no, I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm like, well, that is north of Florida, I guess. But here you are. And Huck, thank you for that kind introduction. I heard you say young man. That slipped. I couldn't be more grateful to be here tonight, and I am going to, as Coach Mills asked me to do, and when Coach Mills asks you to do something, and I'll explain why tonight, you just do it. And so when he asked me to come down and speak tonight, I was thrilled, anxious to do it. But before we get started, there's the obligatory thank you to the Bristol Sports Hall of Fame. And it's the traditional, clap and recognize the directors. But it's so much more than that. And I want to kick this portion of the night off by having everyone who is associated with Bristol Sports Hall of Fame just stand up very briefly, because there's so many people here tonight. Just please stand and be recognized. Great job there, Jack. And to flip that the other way, because what I'm going to talk about tonight has a lot to do with the sports community. And hopefully I don't get choked up. I don't normally, but this is a very different night for me. I would like to have everyone who's not part of Bristol Sports Hall of Fame stand up and give a round of applause, like a standing ovation to the Bristol Sports Hall of Fame tonight. It's that meaningful. Okay, we can go home now. Just to kick off, for a show of hands, who here had an opportunity to play sports as a youth? Think back to your childhood, way back, and just raise your hand if you had an opportunity to play Little League, Pop Warner football, boys club, girls club, tennis, soccer, anything as a youth in your community. So that's pretty much everyone here. The concept around Bristol and Bristol's community is there's no other sports community like Bristol. The time and effort that Bristol puts into giving their youths opportunity to learn life lessons through sports that carry on with them for the rest of their lives comes from the Bristol sports community. And I'm here tonight as a representative. I'm only one. I'm a representative of those youth who were given the opportunity from all of those who came before me and who came before you to set up a community that instills in their youth values that they'll use for the rest of their lives. Think about that. Teamwork, discipline. There's leadership skills that you learn through sports. Fellowship skills. Reinhard Walker, where are you? There's Reinhard, Bristol Sports Hall of Fame's finest. I played behind Reinhard and looked up to him. Great athlete, but not only that, he was a great person. Fellowship skills is something that's incredibly important to youth as they go through sports. And the Bristol community provides all of that opportunity to learn those life lessons. For me, the three most important that I learned through sports and I carry on every day, and it's been helpful for me as a family member, it's been helpful to me as a business owner, it's been helpful to me in the community, as a community activist, I guess. Three most important things I got out of sports. Number one, you can't quit. Never, ever quit. And I think that's been really important. I'll talk about that a little bit more through the journey. But I learned that through sports. I learned that through Coach Mills, Coach LeBeau, Coach Kilby. Never quit. That's a trait you learn by getting knocked on your ass and having to get back up. From striking out in the big game and having to get back up. To losing that volley at the end of the tennis match that cost you the state championship and having to play again next year. The life lessons through sports are immeasurable. And I honestly don't think there's any community that offers it more than Bristol based on my journey. Number one, never give up. Number two, and this one's really important, you have to work hard. To be successful at anything, my advice to young people, and I meet with a lot of young people every day, whatever it is that you want to do, you have to work hard. No one gets a free pass. There is no hack to being successful. It's not about where you grew up. It's not about how connected you are. It's not about what you look like. It's not about what your parents do. It's about how hard you work. And those life lessons come from sports. Huge. And the third and most important in my life, and I try to celebrate this every day, is the concept of being a team player, a locker room person, and creating relationships. And the relationships are the most important aspect, I think, of what you do every day. And here's the biggest thing that I learned from Bristol, and the most meaningful thing to me as we talk about how my life played out from growing up here to where I am today. It has been all about relationships. And it's not just being in a relationship, in whatever aspect you want to have a relationship, it's about being in a healthy relationship. And that's a big difference. There are a lot of relationships out there. There's good relationships, bad relationships, toxic relationships. But a healthy relationship has to be mutually beneficial. And in order for it to be mutually beneficial, you have to give into that relationship. And that relationship doesn't mean it's limited to your partner in life. My partner Erin is here tonight. A relationship with your children, your spouse, a relationship with your faith, with your team, whatever relationship you want to have, you have to take a step back and ask, is it mutually beneficial? And that starts with, what am I bringing to the relationship? Because if you're not bringing anything to the relationship, it's not going to be mutually beneficial and it won't be healthy. How did I learn that? Bristol was my community that started the relationship by providing me with incredible life lessons and opportunities that I don't think a lot of other people had. And I feel blessed. So come back and speak to your community? Yeah, that's easy. I'm incredibly indebted to my community because Bristol, through sports and other support systems that were here when I was a kid, provided me with that part of the relationship. And this is just me giving it back. So it's a healthy relationship. I am the middle child. My older sister, me, we had a younger brother growing up. And we all played sports. We all love sports, but after a certain age, my younger brother had to stop playing sports. He was born with a medical condition where he had a fully formed skull at birth. And he had his skull removed and a plastic plate put in when he was about 18 months old. And he was no longer able to play sports after a certain age. And he loved sports. My sister and I played sports. Honestly, I played more than she did. I played football, I played baseball, and I really loved playing sports, but not like him. He was a fanatic. And I had all those life lessons that I was given by being able to play sports. I was healthy. I had that opportunity. He didn't have that same opportunity. And yet, in some random way, if he wasn't at my games or my sister's games, he started going to the Bristol Red Sox games. And he went often enough that one day they said, hey, you're here all the time, our bat boy's going off to college. Why don't you become the bat boy? And so when he was about 16 years old, my younger brother became the bat boy of the Bristol Red Sox. And even though he couldn't pitch or he couldn't field, his role in being that bat boy made him feel every bit a sense of belonging, and he had every bit of a sense of accomplishment, which is really what we get out of sports, right? What's more important than that? He had that benefit. Now, because of his medical issues, it created a number of financial issues for our family. And we moved around a lot. So we were in Fleetwood Road. My sister can rattle off every number, but somewhere on Fleetwood Road, we're in Constance Lane, we're in Duncan Street. We moved around a lot in the city of Bristol. And for me, the constant of always having forced the Little League, the Patriots Pop Warner football team, midget football, the boys club. Malcolm just showed me a photo of Tiny, who I haven't seen. Everyone remembers Tiny. It was an incredible safety net for me to have that same consistency. We could move, we could relocate, but you know what? I always went to the Forestville Little League, and I always felt home there. The latter years we lived up on Goodwin Street, up on Federal Hill, made it up big time. I don't know if anyone's ever ridden their bike up that hill. But we had a little rental up there, and it was the 4 years of my high school where I had the privilege of playing for Coach Mills, Coach Morin, Coach LeBeau, Coach Castelline, Coach Krampitz. You know all these guys. Football in the fall, I played baseball with Coach Kilby in the summer. And these guys were the mentors who taught you these life lessons. That wasn't me figuring it out. I didn't read about it in a book. I didn't watch it on social media. Believe it or not, there's no Instagram back then, guys. It was real. And it was people who invested their time. And it enabled you to look back on and think of the leadership they had and the support that those guys got in shaping kids for the future. And I'm still blown away at that leadership, that commitment, that sacrifice to say, this is what I want to do with my life. I want to make young people better. Is there anything more admirable than that? And that leadership brought in unbelievable support. We stopped at Max's Pizza today. Max's Pizza. Max's Pizza, Bristol Savings Bank, Robert's Jewelers. Think of all the companies that supported the Little League fields and the uniforms. They could have done a lot of other things with that money, but they cared about the community. And I'm the benefactor of that. And I'm a representative of so many benefactors of that I'm incredibly grateful to have an opportunity to come back and talk to you people about this. My senior year, through football, I connected with Tufts. This is about the point in time when my kids say, Dad, you gotta land the plane here, but I got more to go. We're going all the way back to my senior year, high school. And I connected with Tufts University. And it was a school in Boston. They had a Division III football team. For whatever reason, the coach wanted me to come there, told me to apply to the school. Coach Mills and the rest of the staff was incredibly helpful in getting game film, helping me get my SATs, so I could get everything lined up and apply to the school. And wouldn't you know, I got accepted. In my senior year, while living in Federal Hill, I get a phone call from the head coach of Tufts University. He said, congrats, you get in, you're accepted. Couldn't be more excited for you. And believe it or not, Tufts was 15 grand a year back then. Yeah, 15 grand a year. I just heard it groan. And so this was the deal. The coach was all excited. He said, Jay, we're so excited you got accepted. And he had me apply to the engineering school and apply early decision. And the reason he did that was my SAT scores, don't anyone write this down, was 1,070. I had 630 in my math and 440 in my verbals. And I think if you just filled out your name on the verbal test, you got at least 400. So the guy says, listen, if you're gonna come here, you gotta apply to the engineering school, you have to apply early decision, this is your only shot to get in. And then he calls me and says, you got in. Not only that, Jay, you have an unbelievable financial aid package. You're gonna get an engineering grant, you're gonna have a student loan, you're gonna have a work study in the spring, where you're gonna have a job, all in, the 15 grand is only gonna cost you $6,400 a year. And I will never forget this phone call. For you young people in the room today, believe it or not, phones used to be attached to the wall. Long, well, not that long, of course. And probably once every 6 months, because I had an older sister who was high school age, she'd run up the phone bill and they'd disconnect our phone, remember? And so this month, we actually had phone service, and the phone's connected to the wall, and the guy calls me and says, hey, congrats. You got in, and you got this unbelievable financial aid package. I hung up the phone, and I literally floated into my family room. My parents are sitting there watching TV, and I come in, so excited. Donovan, you hanging in there? All right. No. We haven't even gotten my first car yet. Where are we going? So, my parents are watching TV, and I tell them the great news, and all I can remember, and I'll never forget it, was the two of them looking at each other like, who's gonna tell them? Like, tell them what? Like, Jay, we don't have $6,400. We're anticipating you go to a state school, which is $2,500 if it's an in-state tuition. And we're trying to figure out how to come up with the $2,500. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't wrap my head around that. I mean, I knew we didn't have a lot of money, but no one in the neighborhood seemed like they had a lot of money, and kids still went to college. Like, what's going on? This doesn't make any sense. So what do I do? Dad, what do I do? He said, well, call the guy back. Tell him you can't go. Imagine that. Call the guy back, tell him you can't go. It's another most memorable phone call. And it ties into that theme of don't quit. Because quitting would be, you know what, I'm not calling him back. I'm just not going. And we'll figure something else out. I quit. It's too embarrassing. I'm not going to make that phone call. But through Bristol sports, you learn, get back up and get back in there, make the phone call. And I called the head coach and said, Coach, I'm embarrassed to say this, but I can't come. We don't have the money. And I was incredibly embarrassed, and he knew it. And the thing I'll never ever forget was his reaction to me was so kind and so thoughtful to say, hey, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. He knew I was worried about it. He said, a lot of kids are in the same boat. He said, it's okay, I understand. Wherever you go, you'll do great. He said, but do me a favor. Give me a couple days. Don't make it, this was a Wednesday. Give me a couple of days. Don't make any decisions. Don't do anything until Friday. Let me call you back. He called me back Friday afternoon. He said, listen, you got another engineering grant. I got you another student loan. You can have a work study during the fall while you're playing football, but all in it's $3,400. I remember sitting with my parents that night saying, hey, guys, $3,400. And there was a lot of commotion around that. And at the end of the night, they sat me down and said, listen, we got about $1,000 in the bank. We don't know how we're going to do it, but call the guy back and tell him you're going to go. Don't quit. I called him and said, Coach, I'm coming. Fast forward to the finishing of my senior year, $3,400, and again, I'm a math guy, 6 and 30 math scores, $3,400 divided by 2, $1,700 a semester. My parents have $1,000 in the bank. What happened to me? I was one of 12 recipients to get a $1,000 Kiwanis Club student loan. $1,000, plunk, right there my senior year. I worked my whole summer. We drove by it on the way down here, the wood pile, splitting wood on Middle Street here, and saved another $1,000 in cash. And when my dad dropped me off at Tufts, I had $2,000, went into the bursar's office, paid $1,700, walked out of there with $300 for my first semester. My first semester freshman year, clearly not ready for Tufts academically. I got a 1.8. Yeah, 1.8. I started as a freshman, played 7 out of the 8 games. That worked, but the academics were super challenging. They weed you out in the engineering program, and I was ready to be weeded. On top of that, my freshman year, my dad, who sold used cars, got a hernia, and he was laid up for the fall. You're laid up and you can't get to the lot, you can't sell cars. So I'm pretty much out of money. I'm coming back to Bristol for Thanksgiving break. I got a 1.8, had a pretty good football season. And I'm talking amongst my friends about transferring. At least not going back to Tufts. I don't have the money. And frankly, I don't think I have the aptitude academically. I'm gonna mail it in. Not going back. When there's 2 or 3 more weeks of school, I come home for Christmas break and I'm trying to figure it all out. I get a phone call from Dr. Mack of the Kiwanis Club. And we were just talking about him earlier tonight, remember? Dr. Mack calls me up and says, hey Jay, I understand you had a good football season. How'd it go? I said, well, great. He said, did you like Tufts? I said, yeah, I loved it. He said, are you going back? I said, yeah, I'm trying to figure that out right now. I said, well, Dr. Mack said this to me. He said, I wonder if you could do me a favor. We overfunded the account. We have an additional $1,000. Can you take that money? You can only imagine what I was thinking. Where do I have to be? Bristol Savings Bank, noontime, bang, I'm there, I got an extra $1,000. And frankly, I didn't realize till I was like 25, 26 years old, because remember, I'm 18 at this point. I'm 25, 26 years old in Boston, I'm driving around one day and it hits me. Like, wait, what? Overfunded the account? Like, these guys are math guys. This guy runs a bank. He didn't want to embarrass me, and he wanted to make it as easy as possible to say, I know you need help, here's an extra $1,000. Think about that. And I went back up for my sophomore year, or the second semester of my freshman year, and figured out my next 3 years and graduated from Tufts. From that, more like life lessons around hard work, never quitting, and building relationships. In 1996, actually, when I first graduated from Tufts, when I was a freshman, a senior who was the quarterback of our football team went on to work for a construction company in Cambridge. I'm a civil engineer. I got a civil engineering degree. You'll never hear me state my GPA, but I actually have the degree. But the one thing I did learn when I was there is that I'm not cut out to be an engineer. And with a lot of student loans and the money I had to pay back to the Kiwanis Club, I needed a job. And when I graduated college, the quarterback who was quarterback when I was a freshman was working for a construction company in Cambridge. And through my relationship with him, they hired me. And that's when I started to figure out how important relationships were. I worked for that company for 10 years. In 1996, I cashed in my 401k, I bought a desk and a phone, and I started Jay Calnan and Associates, which is a construction management firm out of Boston. Through the last 30 years, what I have learned is that when I first started the company and I would sit with a potential client and explain to them how good we were and all the skills we had, and the talent we had, and how we can help them build their building, I realized I was like everyone else, pitching them on trying to get the business. What I learned pretty quickly was that I wanted to have a relationship, I have to invest in the relationship. And that's going back to the mutually beneficial we talked about that I learned through sports. And having an opportunity to meet with a prospective client, and instead of saying, hey, this is what we're about, this is what we do, can you hire us? I learned to ask, what are you doing? And listen, and then try to help. And through that process, I started to figure out that to be in a relationship, you had to give, to get. And that was just building on what I learned through sports here as a kid. And I've spent 30 years building a business around that simple concept that started here in Bristol. 15 years ago, we started Team Impact. Huck referred to that a little earlier. My younger brother didn't go to college. And a couple years after I graduated college, he was killed in a car accident. Whew. I don't get choked up on that anymore, but that who got me. He was killed in a car accident on a Saturday at his lunch break. And it was such a random thing that it really made you ask, why would a kid go through that hardship with his health issues to have it end that way? I get kids deal with health issues. I get that. And my brother dealt with that. That's how it goes. And I understand how kids get killed in car accidents, sad as that is. I get that. But why have those two for this kid? And so there's a lot of soul searching there. And again, from the standpoint of, do you want to quit? Do you want to give up? I wanted to quit on my faith. And I definitely wanted to give up on my faith. But that's how you get through things. You get back up, you get back in there. Where did I learn that? Bristol sports. And it made me reflect on how fortunate I am. I am healthy, and I've had unbelievable opportunity. It made me reflect on the fact that I'm here every day, and he's not. And so what are you going to do about it? That was 1989, and I'm a slow learner, as you guys understand. 1999, there's a little boy named Joe McGinn. He was best friends with Stephen Mills, and when we were in high school, Joe and Steve were the little 7, 8-year-old boys roaming around the football field, jumping on the tackling dummies, bringing us water during our summer breaks. Two kids thick as thieves. Joe went off to Northeastern, Steve went off to Yale. When Joe was at Northeastern, huge sports fanatic. He had a medical condition, wouldn't allow him to play sports, but he loved sports. He befriended the basketball coach at Northeastern. Sadly, through his medical condition, he had to have his legs amputated and transferred to UConn because he had to go home. And he commuted to UConn. And in 1999, in UConn's first national championship run, he was part of the basketball team. A lot of people here in Bristol remember the story. It was memorable, and right there, just like my brother in the Bristol Red Sox, here's Joe McGinn 10 years later, 1999. Right around 2009, again, I'm a slow learner, I came across a little girl who was part of the women's lacrosse team at Northwestern University. Kind of a long story. The women's coach, her brother was my next door neighbor in Boston. And so I had a connection there. And here's a little girl who has this connection to this Northwestern women's lacrosse team. And it's the same concept. She gets that sense of belonging, she gets that sense of purpose. The same way Joe McGinn did. The same way my brother did. What I also noticed was that the student athletes that were part of those teams got every bit, if not more, benefit by getting a perspective that I had after my brother died. How lucky am I that I'm healthy? How lucky am I that I'm here? And that concept kicked off this organization called Team Impact. And so 15 years ago, I went to a handful of my relationships, friends of mine, in that mutually beneficial world, and said, why don't we fund this concept that instead of a kid randomly being at a ball game and get selected to be a bat boy, or a kid randomly connecting with a coach at a school, or a girl randomly connecting to a team in Chicago, why don't we make it happen? Why don't we leverage our network? We have relationships. I don't know anyone in Bristol and Boston Children's Hospital. If I call there, they're not going to call me back. But I'm very good friends with a board member. So I call him, he calls the hospital, they call me right back. What are you looking for? Well, we'd like to find a family that has a child between 5 and 15 that's battling some life-threatening or chronic illness. Well, there's a family right here, and they live in Newburyport, Mass. Wow, Newburyport, Mass. That's right next to St. A's College. I don't know anyone at St. A's College, but I went to Tufts. The Tufts baseball coach used to coach at UNH. UNH coach used to be the assistant coach at St. A's College. Why don't we get St. A's to have that kid be part of the team? So on Mother's Day 2011, we drafted a little boy named Benjamin Roy onto St. A's College hockey. One kid. And 2 months ago, we just surpassed the 4,000 kids drafted on the college teams all across the country. And if you don't mind, Tommy's going to show a quick video. Did we lose you? Oh, there he is.
Through all the hard days and all the scary stuff.
Through all the tears and moments, we'll always have our team behind us.
Team Impact places kids with serious illness and disabilities on college sports teams.
With athletes who support and inspire us, while we do the same for them. Team Impact, all in, all together.
And so it's thrilling for me to be here tonight. Again, Coach Mills says, do this, you do it. And I couldn't be more thrilled to be here. One of the components he asked me to talk about was your legacy. For me, I'm blessed. I have 3 healthy children. They've all grown up around sports. My oldest son, captain of Boston College hockey, drafted by the Blackhawks, understands the value of sports. My younger son, All-American lacrosse player, played at Hopkins. And my daughter in the middle, arguably the best athlete of the 3, chose not to play college sports and traveled around Europe during college. Yeah, just like her aunt. And so, we don't measure things based on championships or trophies. It's just measured on character and relationships. And for me, that's my legacy. My kids, my family, my loved ones. Erin, by the way, 1,200 point basketball player in her high school. She's embarrassed. But she was also captain of her high school soccer team in Gettysburg, Gettysburg, PA. And I heard a couple people go, wow, captain of the team, yeah, that's pretty cool. The only thing is they didn't have women's soccer. She was captain of the boys team. And went on to play at NC State. It's not about the trophies. It's about the character. It's about the relationships, and it's about the blessings that we have playing team sports. And we are blessed. That's our legacy. My brother's legacy and our family, that $1,000 phone call to meet at Bristol Savings Bank last December, our family committed $250,000 to the Bristol Sports Hall of Fame. And it's not enough. We're going to do more. But there are other kids who need that same help out there, and we're going to get them that help. And then lastly, the city of Bristol's legacy is team impact. Because if you don't get from the community through sports, you can't give to the community through sports. That's what we're teaching every day to 250,000 student athletes. Donovan being one of them, with Riley at UConn. And we're teaching that every day. Where did we learn that? Right here in Bristol, Connecticut. And so I can't thank you enough, Bristol and the Bristol Sports Hall of Fame, for everything that you guys have done and everything you guys continue to do. Apologize for going so long, but it was incredibly important for you guys to know how that mutually beneficial relationship thing started here. Thank you very much.
Before we get to the next speaker, I just want to mention one thing. Jay mentioned about his gift, very generous gift. We don't have all the details, but it'll be strictly for scholarships. But I want to give you a little story. When my first term as president 5 years ago, we were looking for sponsors for our scholarships at the high schools. And Jay was the second person I called up, and he said, "What are you looking for?" And I said, "Well, I'm looking for $1,000 a year and a 5-year commitment." And he says, "I can't do that." I paused for a minute. He says, "I'll give you $2,000 a year, and I'll do it forever." That's the type of guy Jay is. And for the past 5 years, the scholarships at Bristol Eastern have been in his brother's memory, the Christopher Calnan Memorial Scholarships. And obviously we'll continue those for a long time. So, not done yet, Jay. So we have a little appreciation plaque we'd like to present to Jay. Come on over here. Says,
Could Coach Mills come up and join us?
sure.
Come on up.
Did I mention never quit?
Stop sprinting.
We're not going to let him speak, don't worry.
Jay, it says, with grateful appreciation, the Bristol Sports Hall of Fame recognizes Jay Calnan for his generous and committed contributions to the sports community in his hometown of Bristol, Connecticut, May 13th, 2025.
So again, for me, when I was, asked to come up and be involved with this, the biggest thing, and I think Jay touched on this as well, we had so many people help us when we were at this young age. I see so many young faces out there. And the next person that I'm going to introduce, I think all of us are very proud of him from Bristol. His resume speaks for itself. We all watched him grow up from the days in middle school to Bristol Central to UConn and now playing in the NBA. The thing I'm most proud about with him is every time I've seen him, every time, he's been humble and he's always spent time with young kids that have come up and talked with him. And to me, I think that's more important about the character that he has because again, we've talked about it, basketball is eventually going to end, but the legacy that he's leaving behind and the folks that he's encouraging is really what has impressed me so much. With that, Donovan, it's all you.
Fix this a little bit. Malcolm, thank you. Everyone, thank you for having me here and thank you for coming to listen to me. I'm not going to be as good as him, but I'll do what I can. I was just going to talk a little bit about my story and how I've gotten to where I'm at today and everything I've done. And really just for kids out there looking to do whatever they can in life and sports or whatever it is. I just want to try to leave you with something today. And for me, it started when I was probably about 5, 6 years old. I was playing bitty basketball at the Boys and Girls Club. And it was a picture of me and Carson that, sitting on the bench. I was much taller than him at that time too. But played bitty basketball growing up. Played baseball too. I feel like baseball was always my biggest love, and all the way through elementary school. And then really once middle school happened, I was playing at Chipman's Hill. I think I was on the white team. Mr. Chesmer was my coach, and then 8th grade I had a very hard moment in my life. Lost my mom to cancer, and after that I had faced a battle, an opportunity or a choice to make, which was play basketball and try to change my life and make my mom proud, or just give up and try to figure out what's next. And I really decided to play basketball, obviously, and it led to great things. And I couldn't be proud of myself just because of all the hard work I put into get to this point. It wasn't easy. Especially dealing with Coach Hurley at UConn. That was probably one of the hardest 2 years of my life. But, Bristol sports has really meant a lot to me. When I went to high school, my mom went to Bristol Central, and something that always meant a lot to me was putting my name next to hers on all the records. And I was asked by every high school in the country to go play for them, and to go to every state. And I just felt like it was really important to me to stay loyal and stay local and just do what I said I wanted to do, and that was make my mom proud and put my name next to hers. And it ended up working out for me. A funny story about Coach Hurley. When he first recruited me, the first time he ever came to watch me play, I'll never forget. It was like 6 p.m. during the week at Bristol Central. Coach Hurley walked in. Coach Hurley is not always on time, so he walked in a little late. He was in there for about probably no more than 10 minutes and then just walked out the gym. And when I saw him walk out the gym, in my head I was like, all right, well, he just hated everything he saw, and I might as well just stop this workout. So after I finished the workout, I went home. I think it was about 20-30 minutes later. I just got a shower, and my dad called me down and said that Coach Barrett, my high school coach, said that I just called him and said Coach Hurley offered me a scholarship to go play at UConn, and I was like, he was there for no longer than 10 minutes. Coach Hurley is someone that really has changed my life forever. Obviously, Coach Barrett playing at Bristol Central for 4 years. Obviously, all the games we've won, the state championships, and playing and dealing with the mask through COVID was not the easiest, but it it was a memory for sure, and we won a lot of games, and those were 4 years I'll remember for the rest of my life. And it led to great things at UConn. I don't know where to begin for that. UConn was 2 years that everyone who touches, well, anyone who plays sports really is their goal is to win the championship. Their goal is to go to Division I college, play in March, and play in March Madness. I feel like for me, sorry to all the teachers out there, but Thursdays, Fridays during March, I was in the back of the classroom on my phone, against my Bible. I was watching March Madness. So for me, when I got to UConn, I did not, going into my freshman year, I did not see us really being a team that was really even a team to go to the playoffs or the tournament. And as the season went on, and playing behind Adama, and everything he taught me, it wasn't easy. I'll tell you, my freshman year at college, playing behind Adama Sanogo was probably one of the hardest things because he kicked my butt in practice every single day. So, he taught me a lot of things that I still carry to this level now, and I tell everyone that without Adama, I'm not the player I am today. And he led that team, and you guys that was right there. He saw it firsthand every single day. But yeah, my freshman year at UConn, obviously I didn't play as much as I did my sophomore year. Went on to win the national title, and made the decision. I had a decision to make going into my sophomore year, and that was go to the NBA or go back to UConn and play another year. And I think I made the right choice of going back to UConn. Went back to UConn. I went back to UConn, and I feel like that was the best decision I've ever made because I had a year to go as a player, as a person, and I feel like my freshman year I didn't get to show everyone everything I was able to do, and I feel like going back from my sophomore year, I was able to get more playing time. I was able to play against better teams because we had a bigger schedule up ahead, and I wanted to go out for the state of Connecticut and really just try to win more games and put another banner up on the wall, and that was something that meant a lot to me, and we were able to get that done, and it was probably one of the best years of my life. The relationships I built, some of my friends, Steph Castle, Cam Spencer, those are two of my best friends that I talk to all the time, and even though we play against each other now, it's a battle on the court, but we're always brothers, and I feel like that's one thing that I learned through high school and college is relationships. You're going to meet some of the best people in your life. I met my girlfriend in high school. Still with her now, and will be with her forever. That's the plan. And, it's just high school, college is where you build relationships. You meet the people that have supported you and who can continue to support you throughout your whole life, no matter how much money you make, what job you do, how famous you are, no matter what it is, people who really care about you and really want to see you do well and succeed. Those are people you want to surround yourself around, and I was very lucky to find some of my best friends throughout high school and college, and I made a very hard decision to obviously leave UConn and go to the NBA, and that was not an easy decision for me. Coach Shirley, I kind of blame Coach Shirley for that one. He kind of pushed me out of there, but obviously playing my first year at the NBA is completely different than college. I'll tell you that. It's a lot of hard work. It's every day for months. You travel 4 or 5 times a week. It's practicing every day, watching film. You got to play the best players that ever touched the basketball, one night, and then you got to play the next best player the next night, and it gets difficult. But one thing I learned is just to keep going, no matter what comes your way. You can always outwork someone, and you can always find a way to do something the right way and do it better Something, I always stay in the gym and try to get better at everything I do. And, I'm just trying to be the best version of myself every single day, and I'm just trying to make everyone proud.
So here's how we're gonna finish up. We're gonna do a little question and answering, and we're gonna hand out some gifts, and then, again, what I love about Donovan, he's going to take time to take pictures with everybody. But we're gonna have kind of a little order with it in terms of, we're gonna make sure everybody gets a chance to do that, so we're gonna talk with you a little bit more about that at the end of the program, but we're gonna start off, question for Donovan. So Donovan, as we're doing this, I wanna know, I'm just gonna jump right into it. You're welcome to the NBA moment. That first matchup, you came there and you said you're playing the best players in the world. Who's the guy that gave you the most difficulty that first year in the NBA?
I mean, I'll say the first, not personally, because I didn't have to guard him, but first game of my NBA career, we played the Warriors and we lost Steph Curry by 40. And I feel like that was like, oh wow, like he's really that good. You watch TV, but in person is something else.
I'll add to that. My second college game was at Duke, and I was guarding a guy by the name of Grant Hill, and a little different from guarding guys at Bristol Eastern and St. Paul's. So yeah, coach came to me afterwards and said, "Son, you need to get into the weight room." A little difficult. Jay, you talked a lot about the work ethic that you got from playing for people like Coach Mills, and it carried on over to you in the business world. Now, talk a little bit about a couple of things that these young folks in the crowd, you would give them advice.
Yeah, thanks. For the young people, there's a lot of people who you listen to say, follow your passion, right? You hear that from mentors and advisors, and frankly, if that were true, I'd be on a tuna fishing boat right now, tuna fishing. And so it's not like that. What you really should do, and it's so funny that I use this analogy, like if you're 7 foot, play basketball, right? Play to your strengths. If you're an introverted person, you're not very comfortable, connecting with people, find a career like coding. If you're an extroverted person, maybe you want to get into sales. But take a look inwardly at what your skills are, and then try to find a career that matches those skills, right? And it's funny, because I have used that example. If you're 7 foot, play basketball. Like, people get it and say, yeah, I have that skill set. Once you figured out what you want to do based on that skill set, well, then there's no other secret, right? You gotta work hard. There's a lot of people, not a lot, but there's enough people your size that the difference is you work hard. And the day you stop working hard is the day someone else passes you by and you're out. That's just how it works.
Okay, Donovan, back to you. You talked about going up against a no-go that freshman year for you. But what was the biggest adjustment for you going from college to the NBA?
I'd say between travel and the physicality and the pace of play. Travel is like I said earlier, is insane. You're flying, 3-4 times a week when you're on a road trip. Sometimes you're playing back-to-back days on the road, and you have a game at one night at 7, it's over at 11. You land at the next city at 2:30 in the morning, and you're in bed about 3 a.m. But then you got a game that same day. You know what I mean? So it's days like that are tough, but it's what we signed up for. It's what we worked our whole life for, and it took a little time to get used to, but it's basketball.
Jay, this one's for you, and we have a lot of young folks here. You're hiring, right? When you're hiring a person coming out of college, what are some of the characteristics that you're looking for when you're going to hire these young folks, young men and women?
It's so funny, Aaron and I were talking about this on the way down. One of the bigger things is finding people who just get stuff done, right? And you can tell in an interview, someone wants to learn, and yet there's a difference between wanting to learn and being told what to do. And if you ask the right questions in an interview process with young people, you're gonna find those people who come prepared and want to get stuff done. At the end of the day, in order to build a culture and have the right people added to the fold to build the culture, that aspect of getting things done and taking that initiative to get things done. Coach Moses' granddaughter, Emily, I'm gonna embarrass you right now. She works for our firm and has that can do, will do, whatever it takes attitude. That's the culture. Those are the types of people you look for. There are a lot of people who will come in and say, just tell me what to do and I'll do whatever. And you know, that's great, but that's not gonna help us. We look for the people who come in and say, tell me what to do, I'll do that, and then I'll figure out what I have to do next and what I have to do next, and they have that self-starter initiative. That's huge in hiring young people, and this day and age, it's getting harder and harder to find, because I think, you know, a lot of young people, frankly, whether it's social media or just the way society is today, it's just, you know, I need to be told what to do, whereas that self-starter part, I'll figure it out. Like, I get it, I know what is going on here, let me put my best foot forward and try to figure out what I need to do next and take that initiative. That's huge.
This one's for you. I have a lot of young folks in here, a couple guys that play for me, and you know, they see you on TV, they see you win a national championship, 2 of them, they see you in the NBA, but I think a lot of them don't understand the work that you put in behind the scenes to get to where you are. Can you talk about just how hard it was and for you, the amount of work you had to put in to get to where you're at right now?
Yeah, you know, I'll start really in high school. My freshman year of high school, really, day one, you know, Mr. Wininger and his son Sean, me and him used to work out every morning with Mr. Broderick, assistant principal at 5, and Mr. Horn. 5:45, 6 a.m. every day in the weight room before school. Did that for, you know, two, 3 years when we were allowed to, you know, because of COVID. But I did that every day, you know, for as long as I can remember. And you know, after school, I get on the court, work out. And really, college is when I feel like the hard work is really put in. And once you get to that level, or you know, but that was for me. You know, I advise kids to really start young and really just put as much work in as you can at a young age and show everyone that, you know, you're willing to put the work in. You know, but in college, you know, Coach really made sure, you know, that we were occupied, but you know, really just getting extra shots in before practice, after practice, extra free throws. You know, really whatever it is. You know, obviously your body's tired and you know your mind's tired, you might be sore, but you know, if you want to be great, if you want to, you know, make it to the next level, you got to push through those, you know, those tough times when your body's sore and you don't want to do it one day. You know, there's a lot of days where there's people that don't want to do it, but you know, you got to go out there and, you know, if you want to do great things and make it to that next level, you got to go out there and show everyone that you can do it on any given day.
Now this one came, and I know this is on a lot of folks' minds. Top 3 players that you played against, whether it's college, professionally.
Me?
We're not talking about PlayStation games. Real life.
Number 1 is Jokic, hands down. Jokic he was the toughest guard of the year for sure. I mean, Kyrie Irving had 50 against us. That was impressive. Anthony Edwards had 40 something. Carl Anthony Towns, strong dude. Yeah, but I mean, I feel like Jokic is someone that I've always looked up to. Giannis, big fan of Giannis. I mean, Giannis was one of my first jerseys that I can really remember that I bought, and you know, first time guarding him in the game, he took a pull-up midi from the foul line, and I blocked it. And I feel like that was.
Jay, back to the theme of Bristol, and you've talked a lot about that in terms of the help that you had, a small gesture of you continuing your college education. When you think of Bristol, when you think about what it meant to you, kind of sum that up for this audience here, why it's so important for you to come back and give.
Yeah, thanks. I think it's going to be a little redundant, but you get to a certain stage in your life and you start to think about what's really important. And, you know, status is not important, you know, wealth, you know, any flashy stuff. That's not what's really important. You know, who you are as a person, the impact that you can make on other people's lives is really important. And why I'm here tonight, why I stay connected, why I stay in touch with, you know, Coach Mills, Coach LeBeau, and, you know, a bunch of people from Bristol, is because I learned that here. And I honestly don't think there's anything more important in life than to understand the value of relationships. I truly think that's the essence, and to have learned that here, I feel compelled to go out and do what I do every day, you know, whether it's in the business community, the nonprofit, and the philanthropic community, meeting with young professionals, 2 or 3 of them a week. All of that stems back to the fact that I have such a high regard for meaningful relationships, and that you have to give that to get it. And you know, as I explained in that very long-winded speech, I learned that here.
Donovan, final one for you. You know, again, we all have that connection growing up in Bristol. We've all had great mentors. The best advice that you got, something that you carry with you right now, and it could be, you know, from a coach, from your dad, from your aunt, you know, advice that you would give to some of these young faces right here that's carried you even now to this day.
Something like recently, when I left UConn, Coach Hurley, and we had our final talk before I left, he said to me, he goes, you know, Donovan, no matter what happens, you know, don't change who you are as a person. You know, no matter what happens on the basketball floor or what happens, you know, in life, just who you are as a person. Don't let that change, and you know, don't let the people around you change you. And I feel like that stuck with me because, you know, I feel like you go, I mean, at this level, you see a lot of people who, you know, change their life because of everything they have, and you know, the people around them, and they start listening to people around them, and you know, I feel like you can't let that happen, and that's when things start to go south. Is, you know, when you start, you know, changing your life because everything you have. You know, you just gotta, you know, one thing he told me is just stay who I am, and you know, be the person I am, and I feel like that's something that it really stuck with me, and something, you know, I think about all the time.
We've thanked a lot of people. You know, one of the things that I want to say is thank this young man right here. You know, I think we're gonna wrap up the program, but we're gonna hand out some prizes. Donovan is going to take pictures with everybody. We're gonna give you some instructions when you go out there. But one of the things that I want to do and hand out as a gift to everybody in the crowd, it's a little card. One of them's a quote that I wake up to. Some of you might have heard it before, but it talks about your attitude. But then on the back, there's another little quote, and it says, depending on what they are, our habits will either make us or break us. We become what we repeatedly do. And I don't, you know, Donovan, I've been through training camps. I played for Pat Riley. I know how hard it is. We slept in the gym overnight. So we know what the grind is. And it didn't happen by mistake that he's an NBA player. Yes, he's been blessed with some size. But for you young guys out there, some of you know I've talked to you guys about this. Your habits are going to determine a lot. So you better develop good habits. Because whatever they are, if they're good habits, then good things probably are going to happen. But if they're bad habits, then probably it's not going to work out well for you. I want to thank everybody. Again, I'm going to hand these out right here. Right now, what we're going to do is, and we're going to do this, we're going to actually have Donovan, he's going to be off over to the side, so everybody that wants to get a picture with him, we want to be respectful of his time. Again, he's come here, always giving back, but I want to thank everybody for coming out, supporting.
Malcolm, I know we weren't going to do this, but we've got a little bit of time. Can we take 5 questions from the audience?
Absolutely, I was going to, that's fine. So we're going to take 5 questions from the crowd, so just raise your hand if you have a question.
Hi, my question's for Donovan. I'm Melanie. Oh, okay, there. Was it harder to be coached? Were your practices harder when you were at UConn than they are professionally, or the harder when you're professionally?
Cameras are on. I'd say UConn. UConn was much harder for sure. We played 2 times more the amount of games in the NBA, so it's hard for us to really practice the amount you do in college. So, but college practices were rough for sure.
Good evening, gentlemen. How you doing? Malcolm, good job tonight. I want to comment to you and Donovan. You both represent Bristol very well, Malcolm and Donovan. Couple questions. So, Donovan, I've been repping you since you were in 8th grade, and Osgood out there. We're very proud of you. As most people from Bristol, we take a lot of pride in that, and we follow the careers of Malcolm and you and C. Peichel. You guys represent Bristol very well, so we're very proud of that.
Thank you.
My question first is, how hard was it to leave UConn after 2 years? I know it pushed you out, and
Very
also,
hard.
It was,
Yeah,
I
it's
know.
hard.
We're very proud of that, what you've done, and what you do for the kids, and also the donations. Like your program you're doing, the Team Impact is amazing. I try and do it as well with my son. And people trying to get back to the youth. It's very, very important. So we're very proud of what you're doing as well. So all the 3 of you, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I got a quick question for Jay, if I may. Jay, your company is, if they look your company up, you're one of the top 10 places to work in Boston for the last 15 years, or the last 10 years. And you're one of the top 5 companies for giving. Can you tell us a little bit about that and why I know you just talked about it before about giving back, et cetera. How did that become part of your culture for your company?
Yeah, thanks, Coach. Teeing that one up. Forever coaching. I made a brief reference in my brief remarks tonight that I had started my company cashing in a 401k. I bought a desk and a phone. In my very first week starting the company, I literally had a desk and a phone. And I had a notepad of all the relationships that I knew that I could call on and see if there was an opportunity for me to build something so I could get the company started. And I think one of the things that we've tried to instill in everyone who works at JCNA today, and Emily knows the story, is that when you pick up the phone to call, if there's no one on the other line, you can't get anything done. And so pretty quickly you realize how important a vibrant community is. And if I were starting my business, in a community that was in the doldrums and didn't have any vibrancy, no one's picking up the phone. We need a vibrant community in order for us to reach our goals of growing the organization, adding more talented people, mentoring more younger people, pushing the envelope on technology, being in the community and giving back. We can't aspire to those goals if we don't have a strong community. And so, again, you give to the community because you need to get it back. That's how the mutual benefit works between JCNA and the community. And the way we figured it out was picking up the phone day one and realizing there was someone on the other end who was going to help us out. That's how it started.
Donovan, if you could imagine your younger self, what advice would you give yourself?
It's a great question. I would say work, you know, at your age, I would say work harder. I feel like, you know, I just played basketball for fun and just enjoyed it as a sport. It really didn't, you know, think of it as something I wanted to do for the rest of my life. But, you know, now looking back, I wish I started, you know, working as hard as I do now, you know, at a younger age, and, you know, maybe I'd be better than I am, or, you know, whatever it is. But, you know, I feel like just working hard from a very young age, and, you know, instilling that, you know, that dedication to just go out there and get better every single day.
Two more.
What made you play basketball?
I'd say, I mean, my height, and I feel like I just found a love for the game. You know, just going out there competing, and, you know, really just trying to go out there and win everything possible is something that I love to do.
So right now, what we're going to do is we're going to announce some raffle winners, but we're going to have Donovan step out. Again, we're going to talk to folks that want to get a picture with Donovan. Again, we want to make sure everybody gets a chance to do that, so please, no questions for him, but he just wants to make sure to take pictures, so that way everybody gets a chance to get a picture with Donovan, and then we're going to wrap it up from there. All right, but we really want to thank everybody for coming out and supporting.